Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, as promised, I want to make a response video to Lee Rimmer, your humble game master. Hope I'm getting his name right. Yeah, that's it. He made a response video to a Quantum Ogre video of mine, and so response video was great. In fact, there was a lot of posting about it on Facebook, and people made responses to his on YouTube. In terms of written responses. So I want to talk about it a little bit because Quantum Ogre, terribly named game technique. It really should be called Two Roads Diverged in the Yellow Wood, but there was really one road, but through a clever trick of mirrors, it looked like two. Because it's all about the illusion of choice. It's not about ogres, not about quantum mechanics. It's about the illusion of choice. No matter which door you open, you're going to get to the next encounter. There's a story that's going to go on, and so at various points when it looks like you have a choice, you really don't. The takeaway for me from like this discussion though is it's not about like right and wrong. It's about like what's your play style, what's important to you and your group. As long as all of your cards are on the table and you've discussed this sort of thing, you can do it either way. It's just a matter of like if you're playing with somebody like me, you're probably not going to get away with it. I'm going to tell you that I'd rather not have that happen. Sure, if we're playing a one shot, yeah, okay, we've got 4 hours. There's a story that's going to go on. I accept that. That's fine. That can be a lot of fun. However, in a campaign setting, I want to play something more simulationist. I want the world to be consistent. And if I go left, I'm going to find out what's over there. If I go right, I'm going to find out what's over there. If I interact with this one thing over here, that's what happens. And there's things that are going to go on in the world, regardless of what I do, and and I'm going to start to experience them. If I go try to address them and fix them, maybe I'll stop them. But if I do nothing, well, they're going to, they're going to go on as they would. But I have actual choices, and my choices have meanings. It's not to say that you don't have choices in other kinds of games, but I don't want there to be any kind of trickery or the story is not that important to me, or what the narrative. What happens becomes a story. What we did becomes a story. However, it's not wrong if it's your bent to want to play in a more narrative, story-oriented game where there's certain things that are going to happen, and sometimes the game master has to help it along. Both Same Old G and your humble game master both mention that in different ways. That they're not really fond of the dead time. That they want to have stuff happen, and they don't want to have to sit through, or just don't have the time to sit through sessions where you're trying to, as I said, the group is gelling, and you finally kind of find your voice as a group or your interest as a group, and then you start interacting with the game world. And I understand that. So it's not the idea that his fun is bad and wrong and my fun is good. It's just you have to talk to each other. You have to talk to your players. As Same Old G has said many times, and find out, is using something like this okay or not okay. So that to me is the big takeaway. As long as you're being honest, as long as your cards are on the table, that's decent. Also, there's another great comment in written form. Let me find this here. Facebook that Angel Drudenfuds wrote, and she's talking about the idea that she prefers to let players make informed decisions, which means she clearly tells the players what consequences will happen on the paths they choose. They wants the players to decide what kind of story they want to have, and the dilemma of choice informs their characters and the story that will happen. So they get to encounter the things that they themselves put into the game, and goes on, and that's great example. Runesinger says, yeah, good example. But that really isn't Quantum Ogre or denial of choice. It's a foundation of the campaign. So it's a little bit different. The Quantum Ogre still is that idea that you think you have a choice, but you do not. So that's very different. In my opinion, and not saying it's bad. I've certainly been guilty of using many Quantum Ogres. I've certainly been guilty of helping the story along and pushing the players to where I wanted them to go. But I found over time that I prefer a game world that's much more consistent, internally consistent. And as a player, I want my any choice I make to have meaning. Not because I want some grand player agency, but I just I'd rather have the world be as realistic as possible in that regard. So as a game master, I remind myself, because sometimes I will have that instinct, that gut level instinct, I need to push this along, or I need to, things are getting boring, or I really want them to go interact with this MacGuffin or this part of this grand story or scheme I've created. And I have to remember that I wouldn't like that done to me. And hopefully I've had discussions with the players at the table that they don't want that to happen. I've certainly had people tell me before that, dude, that wasn't a real choice. Learned my lessons the hard way. So, at the end of the day, It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just as long as you, as a group, just discuss it, and you're all on board with using those techniques or not. The end. And Lee, make some more response videos. Keep them coming. This is how this stuff works.